TellyCast, the TV industry news review.
MIPCOM is back, and in this week's show, we preview the return of the TV industry's biggest market event, taking place next week in Cannes. And there'll be a different kind of MIPCOM this year, and to take us through some of the highlights are my guests, Lucy Smith, Director of MIPCOM and MIPTV, FRAPA co-chair Jan Salling, The Bridge's Amanda Groom, and Claire Hungate, former boss of Warner Brothers TV production, Brave Bison, and now president of professional esports organisation, Team Liquid. They'll talk us through what it means for MIPCOM to return, what they'll be doing in Cannes, and what to look out for on the Croisette. It's all coming up on this week's TellyCast. My first guest on this MIPCOM preview show is, appropriately enough, Lucy Smith, Director of MIPCOM and MIPTV. Hi, Lucy. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Justin. Great to be here. And thank you for doing a lovely MIPCOM preview.
Not at all. We're very excited about coming down to Cannes in a few days' time and seeing everybody again. And we've obviously had you on the show a couple of times when you've been trying to get the event going in a physical form. And finally, we're back in Cannes. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges of staging MIPCOM this year? Because this is your first live event in charge, is that right?
Yes, it is. And what I want to take it up on. I mean, obviously, it's been a bit of a roller coaster year, and it is the first market in a long time now, and it's the first market in 2 years. So it's been extremely challenging, complicated to plan with all of the restrictions, with the vaccination rollout, be quick enough. And I'm just obviously delighted to say, we've made it. We will be delivering a MIPCOM, that so many of us and so many of our clients really wanted to happen. And what we've been trying to do, what's been challenging is just remaining flexible, speaking and staying in contact with the clients all the time to kind of help people make decisions at different times, however late it may be. But it really was all about trying to listen to clients and to help them to manage their decision-making process, which was obviously very difficult. So what I think was the most challenging moment was we had to make the decision to go back out to all of our exhibitors in July and say, okay, let's sort of reassess the situation. And we gave them the opportunity to rescale their presence, rescale their investment, depending on what they felt they should do at that time, with a lot of international companies, whether people could travel and who could travel. And that meant sort of making a MIPCOM that was sort of better sized with the reality of their company's ability to take part. And that was obviously the big challenge, and that was probably the most complex part. But I'm glad to say that, thankfully, we did that, and we're very grateful to our clients and and our teams. I have to say, for working with us and making it happen. It's not always been easy, but we've worked together, I think, to make it happen.
In terms of staging a regular MIPCOM, the planning process must be probably a year long, right? Does it kind of start at the end of the previous one? Is that usually how a normal MIPCOM comes together?
We have MIPTV in April. So in terms of the actual organisation, there's a lot of planning that will be a year ahead. Obviously, all of the major decisions and the big structural decisions are made a year out. But then we have, the same teams, for the most part, the core teams are working on the different MIP markets. So we have MIP Cancun in November, we have MIP China in June, and then the other major one, of course, being MIPTV in April. So for MIPCOM, we kind of were really in big planning mode, I'd say, from the beginning of this year. So obviously things, changed so much over that time, and that's the whole kind of roller coaster bit. 1 minute it was like, yes, it's all looking, hugely rosy, and we're all thinking it's going to be a huge MIPCOM, and then it was, well, actually, the situation's changing again, and that was difficult for us. It was difficult for our clients, and that's what we had to keep on working with. And it was, it was challenging.
I bet. I mean, because if you think about, obviously, there are certain territories and regions around the world that are now much more advanced in terms of, fighting the COVID pandemic. And thankfully, touch wood, a lot of us in Europe have got pretty effective vaccination campaigns that have led to us having travel restrictions pretty much dropped. But obviously, there's lots of territories that are not in that situation. You overlay that, I guess, with different sizes of businesses. So, some of the smaller and medium-sized businesses, physical markets are really crucial for them. They're just going to go and they just want to come. Whereas bigger companies, I guess, there's more organizational issues for them sending their staff over. I suppose it's insurance and all sorts of stuff. So I can imagine just getting this show on the road and staging this physical event has been a remarkable challenge, and it's really great to see everybody going to be back on the Croisette again.
Absolutely.
Tell us a bit about the experience then, that delegates that are going to come down to Cannes next week, what they can expect.
We're trying to sort of be very much about managing expectations and talking about the realities. We've been very, transparent that this MIPCOM will have a smaller footprint, that there will be a different journey. We've made sure that all of our lists are up on the website so everyone could see sort of, who was coming and how many people were sort of attending, etc. And then the actual physical experience, it's actually quite straightforward now, because we've had a recent, one of our sister shows, one of the property markets, MIPIM, took place about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And so was able to test out the way in which we will manage our safety protocols. So the attendees will just need to show their QR code. In France, that's called the sanitary pass. So it's QR codes showing that they've got one of the European approved vaccinations that will be scanned on their entrance into the Palais. We're asking everyone to print their badges before coming out, because that way they don't have to worry about lining up for registration. So it's just straight to the entrance point.
Yeah.
You get your scan on your QR code that you've either been vaccinated or you've had a test in the past 72 hours. And then you go in, and once you're in, you get a bracelet, and that way you don't have to keep on queuing all day. So that bracelet lasts you a day, and the next day you have to rescan and make sure your pass is still valid. Anyone who has not been able to get the right QR code for whatever reason, there is a COVID testing centre right next to the Palais that we've organised for a very quick, I think, the experience showed us it's probably a sort of a 15, 20-minute time to go in, have a test, and then have the QR code and come into the Palais. It went very smoothly at the last show, and that's really more or less all that's in place inside the Palais because of the changes we made to the whole format. As I said, it's a smaller footprint. We won't be using the -1 level. As you know, we've called it in the past the bunker.
The bunker is closed, yeah.
Yeah, the bunker's closed. And so basically we're using the main floors of the Palais as well as the Riviera Hall. So the floor plans now up on the website, so everyone will be able to navigate their way around. The auditoriums are being used, and people will be asked to keep their masks on inside the Palais. That way, the auditoriums, we don't have to put limits on the numbers of people, inside, because you can just come in, you wear your mask. I mean, I feel that it's what everyone's just got so used to now. From what we're seeing, it's pretty smooth, it's pretty straightforward, and we're expecting it to be like that for MIPCOM.
Just a very quick question on that, because obviously the UK has left the EU, which probably was it the EU last time we were at MIP? I think it probably was. So
I think it was.
Yeah. So Brits coming over, they will have the NHS app that will be accepted alongside the EU one.
Yeah, because it's accepted as one of the EU vaccinations. So for the UK, it'll be very straightforward.
So in terms of getting into a bit more detail, and I know this is going to be different for the kids industry, they're going to be in a slightly different place, aren't they? So it's Riviera 7 and 8, where essentially most of the exhibition area, the marketplace is, and can you tell me what's going on in 7 and 8 and how that's going to work?
The exhibition hall, so the biggest exhibition hall is Riviera 7, which will have normal stands. Companies have done their own stands. Some have done a different version than they may usually do. And there's a networking lounge with terrace areas as well in that space, because obviously with a lot of companies having decided not to build their stands, there's a hell of a lot of extra people who are going to need places to meet. So there's a networking area there too. For those who know the Palais well, it's very easily linked with the Palais, through a pathway. And in the Palais, it's important to note that there are still stands in the level 1 and mainly level 3, and then level 4 and level 5, because of course there's the big pavilions of the European producers with media. We've chosen to have the pavilions from all of the other territories. So there's the Canadians, the Colombians, Belgians, and others up there. So there's all of the floors in the Palais being used as Media 1. Have got a beautiful new space on level 3, and then most of the others then will be in Riviera 7. And Riviera 8, we've actually transformed into a beautiful events area, because it's a big round hall that just looks out onto the beautiful views of Cannes, and it all opens up. We've made that into some networking, conference and special events areas, because in it could all be opened up, and again people can use terraces out there. And we have another networking area there for clients to use as needed. But our special events, like the opening night party, will be there as well.
So it's about probably downloading the map and reacquainting yourself with the new setup. That would probably make a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So you mentioned the exhibition booths. Most of them will be in 7. Will Riviera 7 look, other than you mentioned the networking area, will the actual booths be quite similar to what we're used to in terms of size and layout?
Yeah, I think because, all of the companies use the booths in a very similar way, lots of, beautiful branding, and you'll probably see more smaller booths for sure, because the majority of companies did choose to downsize because of the fact they were going to be bringing less people, and the international companies might not have all of their territories attending. So for sure, there are some smaller booths, but there's 145 and counting, because we're getting lots of things happening over the last 2 weeks from, I believe it's 40 different countries. So lots of different booths coming from all of the different sectors. Some of the companies who didn't take booths have now, we had a small number of sort of meeting tables that people could book if they wanted their own specific space. And then there's just a lot of open networking. Priority is to make sure people have space to do their meetings and make an efficient market as well. It's a special market, but it also needs to, serve its purpose and let people get the business done, which I'm confident it will.
Am I right in saying that it might be accelerating in terms of delegates and exhibitors coming together? I mean, is there a sense that decisions have been made quite late, obviously, with, the various different protocols, people coming into MIPCOM? Are you seeing that picking up momentum as you go into the market itself?
Yes, no, absolutely. And that's what is the most difficult thing about, even being able to predict what the sort of the final, numbers will be. And, many companies who had to make the decision not to, attend in a big way, we've always kept the conversations going, the dialogues going. And, many of them are now, some of them making quite late decisions, taking part differently and, joining differently, whether it's sending groups of executives. I mean, companies like, Fremantle or ITV Studios or Banijay, who may have sort of decided not to do the big stands are now, sending whether it be a couple or a dozen of execs to the show, because, this is where everyone starts getting contact saying, hey, are you going? Let's meet up. And people realizing, well, actually, we can travel. So, yeah, things are definitely continuing to come in. So we're just keeping the pace going and making sure we have everything, in place to welcome everyone and give them the market they want.
I guess it's a bit like a domino effect, isn't it? When everybody's asking around going, are you going? Are you going? Are you going to go? and then it's like, yeah, I'm going to go. And I've actually got a load of meetings. And it's like, oh no, I need to be there as well. I need to get my meetings in.
Absolutely. It totally is. It's like everyone's looking to see what everyone else is doing. But I mean, I've been having some conversations with some, major distributors recently saying, well, listen, I've got a fully booked diary now. So I'm just like, That's fantastic. That's what we've been doing. And we've been spending so much time doing these one-to-one calls with the top buyers and talking to them just to reassure, explain what's in place, tell them what's going on. And, people don't know enough because it's impossible to communicate. There's so much to say. The situation in France is very, very good. It's got the highest level it's the 3 top countries in the world, I think, now in terms of, fully vaccinated population, and number of cases is so low. It will be a very safe MIPCOM, and we've now seen the experience of Cannes. There've been, several events, and including one of our own, and we've seen how smoothly it can run and how safe it's been. So
you've got a bit of a template. Okay, that's good. So that's the exhibit. So, and by the way, I was looking yesterday, and it's been updated all the time, isn't it? I was looking on the website and looking at the attending companies, and there's maybe an assumption there's not many companies coming from America, but actually there are quite a few that are making the trip over. And I noticed that A&E Networks International, they've actually got quite a big presence, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. A&E are a fantastic partner, and they've been partners with us on the Women in Global Entertainment lunch, which they will be organising with us again on the Monday. And also they're a partner on the Diversify TV Excellence Awards, which is also happening. Now, I do also know that they've got a lot of the European officers as well attending. But yeah, no, absolutely. We do have, some of the US companies taking part, and that's fantastic. I've actually got, some exciting news we just have been announcing as well about another major US companies. We can get to that.
Let's just look at the highlights of the market. Now, we've got some guests on the show this week who are going to be moderating panels and running events. We've got Jan Salling coming on. We have Amanda from The Bridge. And we've got Claire Hungate, who's involved in the esports bar as well, which is running in parallel with the event, which is, I think, the first time that's happened, isn't it?
Yes, esports bar is generally takes place separately. So esports bar is taking place on the 13th to the 15th of October. So it's actually on the Wednesday, and will be taking place in the Palais. So I think that's wonderful. You've had Claire Hungate as, being interviewed as well. It's so important that we sort of talk a bit about how sort of the media industry and esports, what they can learn from each other. And all of the MIPCOM delegates will be able to attend esports bar conferences, which start as of the Wednesday afternoon.
Right.
So, yes, and it's the first time it's happening at MIPCOM, which is kind of exceptional because of what happened this year. And it's actually going to be moving alongside MIPTV next April, and that's going to be more of a long-term move, which is great. We're very excited about it.
There could be real opportunities for a different type of MIPCOM for delegates to maybe take something else out of it, rather than just having their maybe 3 days of back-to-back half-an-hour meetings. They may have an opportunity actually to go and observe and have a look at esports and see what synergies there might be, because I think there are potentially quite a few there. Tell us about the other highlights then of the market. What else outside the booths and the meetings? What about the actual conference sessions? What are the highlights delegates can look forward to?
Where do I start? There's always, as with any MIPCOM, even with, this year is no exception, all of those sort of special, all those ingredients that go into making MIPCOM special will be rolled out. So we have actually got a major new event happening, which is an international premiere screening of Star Trek Prodigy, which is the new animated series by Nickelodeon and CBS Studios' iAnimation Productions, which is sort of new and targeting some of the younger audiences. And that's actually, we just announced that, a couple of days ago, and it's taking place in the Palais, in the Grand Auditorium. So that we're very excited about. The conferences, we've actually, we have our MIP Game Changers keynotes, which take place at each MIPCOM. And one of the highlights on the Monday is the Women in Leadership keynote. And there we have a wonderful lineup with Bibiane Godefroy, who's the CEO of New End Studios, and Alex Mayon, the CEO of Channel 4, with Bushra Rajani, who's the founder of We Make. That's taking place on the Monday and will be followed by as I'd mentioned, the Women in Global Entertainment traditional lunch, which is in its 10th anniversary. Later on the Monday, we have the Variety Vanguard Award, which Anders Jensen, the CEO of Nent, will be receiving this year. And he'll also be interviewed in the keynote session, which is something to look forward to.
With their rollout, that's really going to be very interesting what's going on with their business. That'll be a packed event, I would have thought. As
will be the Global Streamers keynote series. So we've got that happening on the Monday afternoon as well, where we have Discovery Plus, Paramount Plus, Pluto TV, Viaplay. And, I think, given all the changes and the rapid acceleration of everything that's going on in the industry, that's definitely a must attend on Monday afternoon.
What about on the Wednesday? Anything that we should sort of make a notes in our diary for in particular on Wednesday?
The kind of big happening kind of event is the Diversify TV Excellence Awards are taking place on Wednesday. On the Wednesday afternoon, they'll also be live streamed. We'll be awarding, so with the Variety Creative Change Award, which we've been partnering on, being presented to Riz Ahmed, which is very exciting. And the Master of Ceremonies is going to be a very cool kind of rising star from France called Salif Cissé. I think you're all going to hear about because he's joining in a big Netflix original next year. And the Diversify TV Excellence Awards are in their 5th year. They're supported by some incredible charities. There are 24 finalists in 8 categories. And that's going to be a really, a big event. So that I hope that a lot of people will be able to take the time to support something that's so important, in the industry right now. There's so much going on because there's also, what we find really important is giving context to different communities to also, meet together and have kind of not sort of closed door, but just opportunities to get together and network. And we work very closely with FRAPA and doing the FRAPA Summit. So I know you're speaking to Jan Salling, who's the co-chair of FRAPA. So we're working with them on a lovely program, which will bring together that community on the Monday. And then we've been working also on a drama meetup and sessions with Entertainment Masterclass, again, bringing together a community to talk about, just some of the most important things happening around, streaming and original content production. So masses going on. And I know I'm, obviously not even mentioning everything because it's impossible, but that's some of it. Oh yeah. And one other thing actually I did want to mention, Justin, is MIP Junior. So what's happening on MIP Junior is, as we had announced before, we've brought MIP Junior kind of into the Palais because we really felt that we needed to do a more sort of compacted event and not sort of have people necessarily needing to stay over so long. And we've got some exciting sessions happening there. I'm particularly interested to hear about, BBC Kids are going to present with Patricia Hidalgo and her team, with Sarah Muller and the team, just talking a bit about what's been happening over the past year. And that will be a really good opportunity for everyone to catch up. And of course, we have a pitch, we have the MIP Junior pitch, which we have every year. And there are some really exciting, shows being presented there.
Going back to something you mentioned earlier on, the party, it's not all about conference and not all about pitch meetings. There's also networking is absolutely key. And this year, you mentioned it's actually going to be in the Palais, the opening party.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll be opening up the big new space that we've installed and designed in the Riviera 8 and making it so it becomes this beautiful Riviera Hall. And it'll be starting immediately after the exhibition opening hours, so from 7 on the Monday evening. And it'll be just open bar, lots of food, looking out onto the Mediterranean and the boats out on the sea. Might be about time for sunset. I'm not sure. I have to check the timing on that. And with a DJ, and we know that everyone's going to be just so happy to get to see each other again and have raise a glass and try and sort of put some of the bad memories behind us and just really enjoy what the shows like MIPCOM in Cannes are all about.
A huge surge in demand for rosé then there'll be on the Monday night on the top of the Palais.
Absolutely.
Lucy, I'm really looking forward to seeing you down in Cannes in a few days' time. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your incredibly busy schedule, and we will see you for that glass of rosé.
Absolutely. I can't wait. Thank you so much, Justin. And we'll look forward to welcoming you down to the fun and excitement and business, hopefully the serendipity and sunshine that Cannes can deliver. Look forward to seeing you.
My next guest is Claire Hungate, former Warner Brothers TV production CEO in the UK and boss of Brave Bison, and now President and COO of the professional esports organisation Team Liquid. Welcome to the show, Claire. How are you?
Thanks, Justin. I'm doing really well, thanks. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm very good. I'm really looking forward to getting down to MIPCOM in a couple of days' time. Are you a regular at MIPCOM? Did you tend to go when you time at Warner's and Brave Bison?
Not at Brave Bison. So in the shed days, obviously, the heydays when you could drink rosé at midday on our tiny little yacht. That was always great fun. When we became part of Warner Brothers, it all became a bit more serious, and drinking rosé at midday wasn't really approved of. So started going less in those days, actually. And really, since I've left Warner, I haven't been at all. So I don't think I've been since MIPCOM 2017. So yeah, looking forward to walking the Croisette again.
It's fabulous that you've come on the show just to give us a little flavour of what you're going to be doing down there. And before we talk about that, tell us about your new role and about Team Liquid, because from where I'm standing, it seems to me like a really natural progression in terms of your career going from TV and then to digital and into this really burgeoning new market, or relatively new market, in esports. But tell us about your new role, why you took it, and what you're going to be doing, and more about Team Liquid too.
Sure. Okay. So, I suppose the kind of narrative I put through my career is following the audience. So, I became a bit frustrated with kind of failure, certainly of the linear TV world, to accept that it had lost the younger generation. And of course, TV ratings aren't falling aren't falling off a cliff because we're a very aging population. Some ridiculous statistic, isn't it? Like 60% of the BBC audience is over 60 years of age or something. Don't quote me on that exactly. And even Channel 4 or E4, which is considered, a youth channel, its average age is over 40, I think, E4. I just kind of became quite frustrated with this kind of failure to address this movement of the audience, which is why I moved into social media and joined Brave Bison, because I wanted to understand that audience, what engaged them, how you told stories to that audience, and on what platforms they wanted to watch them and hear them. And also, for me, my main interest is monetizing the audience, because I'm a commercial beast, and that's what's so fascinating about gaming for me. So, I think Reed Hastings, CEO of Netflix, very famously said that his biggest competitor is not other networks or even other SVODs. It's the gaming world. That's where young people are spending their time and engaging online. So, that's why it's so fascinating to me. It is that movement of the younger audience away from linear TV.
Yeah, and this is really about attention, isn't it? It's the attention economy. It's the attention wars that we're going to go into now, when you've got all of these huge entertainment businesses, and linear TV is competing against social media, as we know that, but also with esports and various different parts of the media spectrum that are demanding our attention. And we know that esports is hugely growing. Before we talk about esports in general, tell us about Team Liquid and the organisation that you've joined.
Yeah, so Team Liquid are one of the biggest esports teams in the world. They call themselves the most winningest esports team in the world, which means they have greater tournament winnings than any other team. You talk about esports being quite recent. Well, they're 21 years old, but it is still very much a kind of an emerging market. We're a multi-generational sports team, so our audience is overwhelmingly young, but we can also skew a bit older because we have been going for 21 years, and so those people that were with us 21 years, now their kids are with us as well. We were founded in the Netherlands, but we also have big operation in the US. We have operations and teams in Brazil, and China is a big area of focus for us also. So we compete in about 15 games. So the biggest ones, of course, are things like League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Dota, Valorant, and esports, for those who don't know, is professional, organized video gaming. And that's something that happens in real life, in massive stadiums, and it also happens online. And I guess the kind of big watershed moment that's always cited for the emergence of esports as a kind of major media and entertainment denominator is the 2013 League of Legends Worlds Final, which took place at the Staples Center. And there were 15,000 people in the stadium, but 32 million people watched that online and on TV, which is just an incredible number.
Yeah, I've just had a quick look online, and the Fortnite World Cup a couple of years ago had a $30 million prize fund, which is extraordinary. So it's really challenging traditional sports when it comes to not only prize funds, but also this new audience that are tuning in online, and presumably in some TV channels in some territories actually focus on this alongside traditional sports.
The kind of comparator to real sports is really interesting, because I guess the thing about esports is that it's endemically digital. It is by its very nature direct to consumer. And so, you have this media industry now that's desperately trying to have a direct to consumer relationship and struggling to do so. But the great thing about esports is that we have that naturally. That's how it all occurred. But, the great comparator that is always made to sports is that with sports teams, the fandom kind of comes regionally, so you might be a sports team based in a particular area and, Manchester United or whatever. And so people are supporters of that team. And what's happened in esports is because of that kind of direct interaction, and because, esports started with kind of streamers streaming on Twitch and on Discord and talking directly to their fans, is that you get people who are fans of the players. So it's more player orientated than team orientated, whereas sports is more team orientated. And I suppose, sometimes that is kind of reflected in the business models around it. But, whereas now you see traditional sports desperately trying to form that direct to consumer relationship, and previously maybe they've ignored it a little bit because the value of media rights has been so huge, you now see potentially the value of those media rights either reducing or leveling off a bit. And so they need to find revenue elsewhere and are trying to form that direct to consumer relationship. Whereas in esports, the media rights isn't as valuable at the moment, and most of that is tied up with publishers, but you do have that direct to consumer relationship. So, they're kind of inverse there, but still, we call our players athletes. They train really, really seriously. These are games of skill, strategy, and mastery, in the same way any sport is.
And what I think is fascinating about it is that, it's open to all, isn't it? Regardless of physical disability and gender as well. It feels to me really, really inclusive as a sport and as a pursuit, because it's strategic, but also it's highly skilled, isn't it?
You do reach really diverse audiences with gaming, because sometimes people go to gaming because of that very diversity, that they don't feel like they're mainstream, or they don't want to take part in sports for kind of whatever reason. And so, it is a really interesting diverse audience. Having said that, it's overwhelmingly male. That brings up lots of issues for the gaming industry and for esports.
In terms of Team Liquid, so you said you've got players that you essentially manage. Do you actually manage? Are you the agent for players and these teams, and you manage their image rights and decide if they're going to play in a particular tournament or not?
We're not agents for those players. A lot of them will have agents or managers. They sign to us as players, and we take particular rights for them, such as media rights and, often sponsorship rights, etc. So they'll work with us and our sponsors in promoting those sponsors. They play for us, and usually they will stream on our channels on Twitch, etc. But we are not their managers. No, most of them will have separate managers.
And you mentioned brands as well. I mean, I think Coca-Cola are getting involved in gaming, presumably. A lot of brands that are looking to target this, as you say, predominantly male young audience, which is obviously, it's a dream audience that the TV industry has sort of lost a little bit.
So what I find really fascinating about the, audience in general, but, really good quality digital audiences, and that's what's so incredible about the gaming audience, is that it's an organic audience. We haven't paid for this audience. This is an audience that willingly come hour after hour, day after day, week after week to engage in our content, in our players' content, in our team's content. And that kind of loyalty and passion and engagement is something that you just can't pay for. And obviously that demographic, which is overwhelmingly, kind of Gen Z and millennial, it is hugely valuable to partners. So, the business model at the moment is very skewed towards sponsorship and advertising revenue. And obviously that's one of the things we want to even out, because you don't really want a business that's too dependent on advertising revenue. So, diversifying those revenue lines as the industry matures is, one of the things that I'll specifically be looking at.
As you mentioned earlier on, it's a digital first pursuit. So actually the data that you must have is absolutely key and super valuable in terms of, targeting and being able to build those other revenue streams, because it's all there. You've got all that information.
One of the things I'm going to be talking about at Esports Bar, at the same time as MIPCOM, which it's another Reed Mid-Em conference, is about innovation. And actually, one of the things that we have been developing is a fan engagement platform of our own called Liquid Plus. So, obviously the big rub of having this kind of huge funnel, which is called social media, which is how the majority of your audience will find you, is that you don't own any of that data, and the data you get access to is incredibly limited. You don't control any of the algorithm. So, the algorithm changes and, you might be in serious trouble. So once you have that really, really highly engaged organic audience, where can you take that audience? Well, where you want to take that audience is to your owned and operated platforms, because on those owned and operated platforms, obviously you can store and analyze and, as you say, use that data. So Liquid Plus is something that we have developed in-house. It's bespoke technology that we've developed in-house. And it is a fan engagement platform where we encourage people to register, to take part in various quests, which involves them, consuming content on various different social platforms. And those quests win them points. And those points can then be exchanged for goods or experiences, and the most highly rewarded, or the people with the most points, get their names on the back of the players' jerseys. So they might see our League of Legends team competing in Worlds this year with their name on the back of the jersey, which is obviously the kind of tribal fandom we're dealing with here is just a huge prize.
When it comes to this event running parallel and almost under the MIPCOM banner, I mean, the TV industry and esports, a long time ago, I worked within the video games industry, and I know that the video games industry, even the size it was with, Microsoft and Sony and all the big console businesses plowing billions into competing for attention in the living room. I always remember that, that TV sort of looked down its nose a little bit at video gaming, even though video gaming was bigger than the film industry, still is, and obviously much, much bigger now, much more international now when we talk about esports. Do you think, what's the future for esports and TV? Can we see a major network taking rights to televise a Worlds event, for example, and some of the key markets? Does that happen already?
I don't have all the answers to this, but I guess, it's what I think about when, you see the BBC investing millions of pounds, putting BBC Three back on a linear platform. It's kind of, why are you trying to take that audience away from the platforms where they exist, where they want to exist, to a platform where they don't want to be? Is that the right thing to do? Will that work? And so, that kind of very idea of trying to take people, that audience, away from their native platforms to linear TV, I don't think that works. I don't think the experience is the same for them. The number of things that they are doing at the same time. The chat, it's all about the chat, and that chat is full of code and a vocabulary that we just don't understand. So it is that interaction that it's so democratic. Esports, you can talk online to your favorite player and they will respond to you. You can send them a message on Discord and they will respond to you, and you just don't get that experience on linear TV, and it currently can't be replicated. And that's not to say that experience won't change over time, or that linear TV's ability to be interactive and to have that direct relationship won't change. But at the moment, it's not the same, and so it's hard to see how it translates exactly. But that said, that League of Legends match and other matches are shown on TV in the States mainly, and are available on VOD platforms around the world, and people do watch them because people want to watch them on big screens.
Yeah.
But I guess there's a difference between just watching something on a screen isn't watching linear TV. So we shouldn't mix those two things up. So it's a difficult one, and it's interesting to see how it evolves.
So you're going to be doing a keynote at the Esports Bar, and that's going to be on Wednesday, the 13th of October at 2:30. Can you just give us a very brief snapshot of what you'll be covering off in your keynote?
Yeah, I think there's a kind of sharing of information to be done, isn't there? What can esports and emerging industries like esports that are still struggling with business models learn from legacy media? And there is a lot, because history tells us that it will follow some of those paths and those business models that TV and film followed, in terms of media rights and financing and dealing with talent. Lots of that is exactly the same, and you can see the value chain is similar as well. But lots of it also is very different. So you then, turn that on its head and look at legacy media and see, what they can learn from esports. And there is just a kind of huge meld of media at the moment, isn't there? And, what comes out at the other end will be very different. So, you see US studios now desperately struggling with how you go direct to consumer and having to completely change their business models and their skill sets. And whereas I said earlier, esports is endemically direct to consumer. So, we have all that knowledge about having that relationship with your fans and engaging an audience. We have a huge team of people who are engaging with audience on an hour by hour basis, reacting to people, answering questions, that kind of tribal fandom, which social media kind of revolves around these passionate niches, and it's all about taking a niche and making it global. TV can learn so much from that. So, I think there's kind of give and take on either side there in terms of what one can learn from the other. There are some of the issues I'll be talking about.
It's going to be really fascinating. And hopefully, at this MIPCOM, which is going to be a different type of MIPCOM, then I think this is a great opportunity for people to come along and, as you say, see what they can learn from esports and perhaps network with some delegates that they might not have the opportunity to meet and see what they can learn from each other. So that's 2:30 on Wednesday, the 13th of October. I'll be there. Look forward to seeing your keynote. Thank you, Claire. Thanks for joining us on TellyCast. And I'd love you to come back and we'll do a special esports show where we can get into more detail about, this. And it's going back to this thing that I think is really fascinating. It's the attention economy and where we're all moving to. And you mentioned legacy media. It's really interesting to think about linear TV in that way. So thanks again, Claire, and we'll see you in Cannes.
You're welcome. Look forward to seeing you on the Croisette. Cheers, Justin.
So my next guest on this week's show, this MIPCOM preview show, is an old friend of TellyCast, FRAPA's co-chair and BBC Studio Nordics, Jan Salling. Jan, how are you? Welcome back to TellyCast.
Hi, Justin, and hi, everyone listening. It's a pleasure to be back.
Yeah. And it's a pleasure to be back, I guess, in the context of MIPCOM starting next week. We're going to be back in person doing business.
Can't wait to get down there to Cannes again and meet the Old Boys network that I've accumulated over the past 30 years and in the last 54 MIPs I have attended.
Wow,
so,
54.
54 MIPs, yeah, when I was calculating. I started out in the early 90s and I've been down there twice a year, except for, of course, the past 2 years where there's been no MIP. And that has been something that has been greatly missed by me and not only me, I think.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that we've made it happen, and we've made it work in these last few months, but knowing that it's not ideal and not an ideal scenario. But we're all going to be flying down or driving down or going on the train or getting there predominantly from Europe. Lots of American delegates going to be there and others from around the world. But I think predominantly it's going to be European delegates and exhibitors. How's your experience been of the last year then, Jan? Last time you were on the show, it was actually a few months before MIPCOM 20 was meant to happen. And we were discussing what would happen if MIPCOM didn't take place. And, we were really hoping it would. It didn't. Everybody kind of got by, but I think it really opens your eyes to how important physical business is.
Yes, we all felt miserable when MIPCOM 20 didn't happen. And now, thank God, MIPCOM 21 will happen. And I'm really, really happy about it and looking forward to it. And as you say, Justin, we all got through it because we had to. And it's kind of scary sometimes how fast you adapt to new, harsh life circumstances. And get used to everyday Zooms and being efficient on Zooms and packing your meetings on Zooms and not spending or wasting sometimes time on commuting from meeting to meeting. So it's incredible. And as we talked about last time, the new technology and all the resources and investments that are put into working to get that to work seamlessly has really paid off. And I think we're going to use that technology going forward. But I do hope and I do think that it will be using that technology to be efficient in your everyday work and get to see people, even though it's through the screen, in a seamless and efficient way, combined with meeting people in real life as well. That is certainly what I'm hoping. And here in the Nordics, as you might know, we are in a good place when it comes to vaccinations and COVID. All the restrictions in the Nordics have been lifted. There is not a single restriction left. So I have in late August, I attended the Danish TV Festival, 950 attending that one.
Wow.
Which was almost, gave me not COVID anxiety, but gave me almost social anxiety. Because you got to, it was people you haven't met for 18 months, so just to be walking around and saying, hi, how are you doing? And even hugging and shaking hands, not elbowing or doing anything else, COVID ridiculous, but real handshakes and real hugs was fantastic. But I got so socially exhausted that the second day of that fantastic conference, I had to go down to the car park and just sit in my car for half an hour with closed eyes and just chill out and breathe, because it was. You
had to have a moment. You had to take a moment.
I just had to have a moment of peace and quiet, which was almost scary. So I say, shit, what has happened yet?
Yeah. Let's not underestimate what we've all been through. And I remember, again, last time you were on, I remember you telling me about the Danish TV singing competitions that were going on and getting like 50% audience share as everybody was getting through that. Yes. So it's, if we cast our minds back to those dark days of lockdown, it was quite extraordinary how things did change on a societal basis. And now we're coming back, we're going to be able to shake people's hands if we're comfortable doing that, and looking each other in the eye, I think, is the important thing, isn't it? And
it's a new way to be together, and again, as you say, shake hands if you want to. The new social pattern from the TV festival, and again, I just spent 2 days in Stockholm, running from meeting to meeting, physical meetings. And, the new social rules, if you will, is, you simply ask people, I want to shake hands, or don't you want to shake hands? And some people say, I'd rather not. And you respect that. And some people said, I'd love to.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
So we are getting back to normal, but we still have that, distancing and respect for people's various barriers. And I think going back to MIPCOM very, very soon is going to be exactly the same. There will be people down there that we will meet and want to hug, but they wouldn't feel comfortable about that, or even shake hands. And we just need to respect those boundaries and get by. But it will still be great to be back in Cannes.
Absolutely. So tell me about what FRAPA's doing at MIPCOM this year, Jan.
Yes, this year we are partnering with Reed Meadham, and we are really happy about that. We've made a super good partnership agreement with Reed Meadham to support getting MIPCOM back on its feet. So on the Monday from 9:15 to 11:15, we will have the FRAPA Summit, which we usually have on Sunday nights. We will have that at the Marriott Beach. And the FRAPA Summit is open for everybody with a MIPCOM badge. And it is half an hour of networking and mingling with the prestigious FRAPA board members, which can sometimes be hard to access and get meetings with if you're not already doing business with them or have a high-profile company. So this is for the next generation producers, the next generation up-and-coming production companies. They can get close to format veterans and heavyweights in the format industry. And there will be 1 hour session where Julien de Groot from TF1 will give a speech on what TF1 is looking for. Carlotta Rossi Spencer from the Banijay Group will do the same, to say what Banijay is looking for and how you get to work with and for Banijay, what the rules are and what the entry points are, to be very hands-on and concrete. And then we will have David Giaramella from K7 Media, who will give what's hot and what's not. So to give sort of our producers some tangible, good information on what is trending right now and what is available out there, and not tied up with the big super indies, and might be available for our independent producers attending the FRAPA Summit. And after that, we will have another half an hour of more networking and exchanging business cards and setting up coffee meetings afterwards. That is the Monday. And on the Tuesday, we have kind of a similar, but is only a 1 hour thing, also in the morning. It will be a 1 hour thing where you have to sign up for it through the FRAPA website or through Reed Meadham. And it will be sort of speed networking, again, with FRAPA board members, but also friends of FRAPA. So Tim Crescenti from Small World, Alvia Mosa will be there as well to be taking questions and giving advice and all kind of thing for speed networking and speed dating, if you will, among up-and-coming producers and veterans.
If you want to access those executives, then it's go on the FRAPA website or on Reed Meadham's MIPCOM website.
Exactly. And Reed Meadham has actually, as a last thing, just in this partnership, Reed Meadham has generously offered 25 MIPCOM badges for any new FRAPA member. So again, as you know, FRAPA's mission is to educate and support protection of IP, but it's also to help the newcomers to the industry, become something and help them network and build their businesses. So if they can't afford the €1,200 MIPCOM badge, they can become a €500 FRAPA member and then get a free badge.
Right. Okay.
So that is a perfect example of a win-win. It's good for Reed Meadham, and it's definitely good for FRAPA, and we can do more, as you know, in our non-profit organization, spend that money on doing more good for the industry.
Right. How do you see the format industry having developed over the last year or so? What's been the impact of what we've been through in formats? I mean, has that accelerated format development? I mean, has it meant that networks around the world have become more risk averse and they're going more for the tried and trusted formats that they've seen been successful in other territories, or is it been the opposite? How do you see it?
I think in the past 18 months to 2 years, I think, as you know, and as you say, Justin, the channels and the streamers have been very risk averse. Also because of, nobody had tried this pandemic before, so nobody knew the impact and the full impact, and everybody was very careful about it and monitoring the situation on a daily basis. And when you are in that situation, you will become risk averse, whether you're a broadcaster or a normal citizen. And I think that has definitely been the trend in the past years across the globe. We've seen a lot of recommissioning of good, safe commissions, and even if they haven't performed super well, they have still been recommissioned because it was safer than to try something completely new in such an uncertain world and everything. But what we also know and what we also hear from almost all the producers we speak with on a daily basis is that there has been shit loads of good development work being done in the past year because they had nothing else to spend time on. So I think we will see a flood of great ideas, well worked through, well thought through, relevant for the marketplace, relevant for society, relevant for the globe, climate change format that are relevant. You will see a lot of great ideas entering the market. If not at this MIPCOM, then definitely around MIPTV, if there will be a MIPTV next year, or MIPCOM next year. We will see a flood of great formats that is hitting the market going forward. I'm sure of it.
Right. Well, that's really interesting, because I also remember one of the other things we discussed when you were last on, or I think the time before that, was the lack of new ideas that we'd seen in the preceding couple of years, I think, at the key markets. There didn't seem to be those breakout hot formats that we used to see accelerating. The super formats. There didn't seem to be any new ones other than The Masked Singer, I think, was probably the one example of that. That's interesting. So you think this super development session that the industry's had over the last year should bear fruit?
It will, and positively looking at what has happened, because we can't change it anyway, Justin. So might as well look at it in a positive way. I think perhaps we as an industry, it was good that we had a shock and a shake-up and a kick in the butt through the pandemic, and made us think out of the box. It was good. It's going to be fruitful. It was good of us, because many of us, especially us that are referred to as veterans, who, attending the MIPS and other markets so many times, we kind of had a tendency to fall into cliches when, where just to seem super bright and super intelligent and Mr. or Mrs. Know-it-all, the only thing we could come up with after the markets was nothing really interesting, nothing exciting, no new stuff, same old, same old. Because, it might be right. It might also be that we just didn't see it, or didn't give a shit, or didn't pay attention, or, we were just too slow or risk averse or something. So to give us all as an industry a kick in the butt and put the industry on pause and have us think about what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we are behaving, how we are treating the planet, how we are treating each other, the necessity of personal contact and not only Zooms, which has come vital to all of us, and give us a pause, and a break from those cliche, I'm so busy, I'm so fantastic, I'm so important kind of cliche work. I think it's been good on that note.
From a motivational perspective, I think there's nothing that motivates you more than the threat of your business disappearing, and having lots of time to actually sit down and go, okay, where are we going? Where are we all going? And
why am I doing the things I'm doing? And why am I doing exactly them in this way? Could it be done in another way? Do we have to be so many employees? Should we be more employees? Am I that important? Or is somebody else in my organization even more important? No, it's been good, I think.
Well, we look forward to seeing those, and I'd love to see some entertainment that puts climate change, as you say, and sustainability center stage, that that becomes something that is a positive educational message without preaching, and something that's genuinely engaging. I think consumers are ready for something like that, don't you?
And you will see it, because just this afternoon we closed a deal. BBC Studios closed a deal with one of the major channels here in Denmark for a climate change format, which is exactly that, motivational and relevant, and that will hit the screens early next year.
Are you going to be presenting that down at MIPCOM as well, Jan?
No, I won't be presenting it at MIPCOM, because that's way too early for the channel. They want to hold it, a bit closer to themselves until we are closer to a TX. But if there is a MIPTV, it will definitely be on the list there. And it's already spread around that this is going to happen. So we already have interest from France, Germany, and Australia on this one. I think we are onto something good. And me being an old hippie, as you know, I think having this climate change format and brought to life is something that is important to me personally. And I also, of course, hope it's going to be good business at the end of the day and spread around the world to do more good on a global scale.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, the millions of listeners on TellyCast. You heard it here first.
Well, brilliant. Well, I look forward to seeing that. And I look forward to seeing you down on the Croisette. Now, Jan, are we hugging, or are we shaking hands, or are we fist bumping?
We are definitely hugging. Okay. Just before we order that bottle of rosé, we hug.
That's a deal. I will see you there. Yeah, you'll have to come down to our TellyCast Come Together drinks party we're having on Sunday night at Brown Sugar.
Invite me. I will be there.
Jan, thanks so much for your time. Really look forward to seeing you.
It was a pleasure. See you in Cannes.
My next guest on our MIPCOM preview show is The Bridge's Amanda Groom, a regular at the market, and now, well, you could say a regular on TellyCast. It's your second appearance. Welcome back, Amanda. How are you?
Thank you, Justin. Look, I'm terrific, and I am really looking forward to a real-world MIPCOM. There's nothing quite like actually being with real people, and I think there will be a great deal of excitement as people actually come together.
Our bags are packed. We're nearly on the planes out there. We're all heading to Cannes. So it feels good to be going back, doesn't it?
Look, there's a very interesting thing that we've all been working digitally, and that is acceptable. And there's no question about that. We've done it all. We've adapted really well. There is something, though, about creativity that people need to be together. When you're actually on your computer, really, subconsciously, most of us are thinking, oh, how soon can I get off this call?
Yeah.
When you're there in real person, be it sharing a coffee, a rosé, glass of rosé, whatever it is, there's a very special, very unique creative spark that happens. And I really do believe that happens in person. Whilst digital is vital now for all of us, and particularly for those who can't physically get to France, people who are there in Cannes will be particularly animated and creative and dying to speak to each other and to come up with ideas, which is, after all, what our business is.
The mechanics of business can go on, and we've found that. Yeah, that's fine. We can have initial conversations about budgets, and we can have conversations about logistics and the sort of the bare bones of the business. But as you say, TV and the content industry is fueled by creativity and creative people sparking off each other and that chemistry. And we've spoken to so many people over the last few months through the depths of lockdown. I think a lot of people have been saying, yep, business as usual. Everything's fine. Everything's going really well. And it's like, yeah, well, that might be the case. But actually,
it's an interesting thing because there are various even senior execs now coming out saying, no, business is not fine being done remotely. And I actually love that, because the genuine story is that business is very different in person. And our business is a person-to-person business. When we are pitching a show, you can only do it to a certain level through the computer. when you're actually there in person, your body language, your laughter, your shared emotions as you're pitching, all of that comes 100% real in person. So whilst you're right, Justin, we have all adapted, we have all done it, but I'm personally rather skeptical about the companies who say they can pitch just as well through digital, because certainly I can't, and certainly a lot of the people when I'm receiving pitches, there is nothing like seeing the passion in the real person as they are actually pitching their great idea.
How's it affected your business not being able to come together in person?
To be perfectly honest, it's been really, really challenging. Most of all for the bridge, because Asia business is done face to face. It is done sitting in a room, usually drinking ridiculous quantities of soju or whatever, which I'm not actually that resilient to. But it is done face to face. I mean, the old expression that nobody ever signs $1 million check over Zoom is absolutely true. People do business in a room together. So the bridge, to be perfectly honest, has been very challenged during this time. We've worked particularly hard to keep together with to keep our contacts going, to keep people informed about what's going on, etc. And what I have noticed is that now things are taking off like a rocket. So it's almost gone from a sort of an abyss to a heaven, but an overload, if you like, of business as suddenly everybody comes back with a vengeance. And there's a really interesting thing that I personally am loving, which is the East-West connection. I mean, you only have to look at Squid Game to go, what? There was such a time when I would knock on broadcasters' doors and say, look, Asia wants to work with us here in the UK and Europe and the US. And my goodness, I had to knock loudly, and there weren't many that opened the door, to be perfectly honest. Now, Asian content, with all of its differences, with all of its new points of view, its new vision, its new creativity, is punching through so hard. I mean, obviously, Parasite being one example, The Masked Singer being another example, that in fact it's no longer an issue when the bridge begins to talk about Asian content, and the flow of business, I think personally, is set to just take off.
Well, it feels like that right across the industry, and let's see. I mean, it's going to be really interesting when we get to Cannes. The people that are going to be there might be the ones that, you know, have got the opportunity to reap the benefits of physically being there as opposed to being on the Zoom. But we'll see. We'll obviously see how that rolls. But now, in terms of actually at MIPCOM itself, you're moderating a panel there. Tell us about that.
Yes. Look, I'm moderating the investors brief, the investors panel, which I've done now for several years running. What's particularly interesting now to me is the models that are coming out post-COVID that are different. Let me tell you, first of all, who is on the panel. It's a smaller physical panel than usual. I've got Nikki Davis-Williams from DCD Rights. They are particularly clever in harnessing the international market and in crossing the line between sort of traditional models and digital models. Once again, I've got Claudia Blumhuber from Silver Reel Films. Oh my goodness, she's got some extraordinary stories, filming in COVID remotely, with a whole crew being fired in southern US, with A-lister talent sitting there with the deadlines sort of leaning over them. And Claudia still looks as beautiful. She doesn't look like she's been through the trauma that she has been through. But my goodness, that has been incredibly tough. And so that sort of puts hairs on the back of your neck stories. The new models. One of them is 108 Media. Now, I have spoken previously with Justin Demon on the panel, and 108 has been based out of Toronto and Singapore for some time. But my goodness, what they are doing now in London in terms of their expansion into the global market is absolutely extraordinary. They are optioning literary books, optioning IP at a rate of knots. They are scaling up at a rate that really makes your eyes water. They have big heavyweights engaged with them, including Michael Jackson, who, of course, we all know from BBC as controller of BBC One, BBC Two, and involved with Channel 4. So they have heavyweights. They have scale, they have investment. Unfortunately, Avi Rastogi, who is the real powerhouse behind 108 Media, who is the CEO, he's not joining me because, in fact, his wife is about to have a baby. But I have Jordan Knutson from Toronto on the panel. The global scale with which they're upscaling is extraordinary and well worth hearing all about, because that they will be somebody we all will be wanting.
Yeah, they're interesting. I haven't heard of 108 Media before.
They're shooting up and very much one to watch, and their scale of development is really quite extraordinary. So very much one to watch. Then there's another one to watch, which is I'm calling it the new kid on the block. New World Film Finance. It really just simply says what it does, says on the tin what it does. A whole new method of financing both film and TV, based actually on proven models in the property and tech markets. Rob McRae will be on my panel. Their model looks at how, in a way, it's a false world, because a lot of money that we know of, a lot of venture capital money, a lot of money has gone into tech. Now, tech is as risky, if not considerably more risky, than the creative industries. We need that money. And New World Film Finance is working on a financial model that will be FDA, UFI compliant. It will all work through due diligence. Of course, that money will be coming from high net worth individuals, but then they will be appointing a panel to sift through viable projects. The panel will have on it people that we all know as leading creatives. They will sift through the content and allocate the money accordingly. But it will all be done with a very transparent financial investment model. So that's very new. And when I say they're the new kids on the block, they are so new. They are rushing to complete websites and business cards and that. The plan has very much been there for over a year. But this really will be their big unveiling, if you like, at MIPCOM this year. So they take away the smoke and mirrors image that in some ways has clouded, we know that it's clouded a lot and has prevented a lot of investment going into TV and film. And we know that the money is pouring into tech. Well, this will divert some of that into what will become a very transparent business finance arrangement. But that is going to be something that will be very useful, I think, to many people in the creative industries.
Have they announced how much money they've got to invest?
It's over 150 million UK pounds here in the UK, but that's just the starter.
And is it factual or scripted content that they're looking to invest in, or both?
Both. It very much will work around compliance. It'll work around risk mitigation. It'll work around a strong and proven structured model. It'll work around sales forecasts. But what's unique is it'll work around sales forecasts not directly attached to talent, but offering A+ level, A level, B+, B-. In other words, it almost breaks down creativity into what is a very, very proven model within the property business, the property and tech business. So it's a whole new model. It's going to be incredibly useful, I think, for many companies as we move forward.
Very interesting. Well, Robert McRae is somebody whose business card will be in high demand, I would imagine, on the Croisette.
He will love that. And the biggest challenge I will have, this will make him smile, I know, will be he and I stopping talking. I only have 9 minutes with each of these people. I could talk to each of my panelists for 2 hours. They are all fascinating.
Well, it's going to be a bit like Dragon's Den, isn't it? You're going to give 9 minutes, 9 minutes to all the content funders and distributors to pitch why you should work with them. But that's going to be an interesting way around. And so delegates, when they get there, they'll see the panel, but there's also a meet and greet, I believe, afterwards. So you can actually go along and meet these guys in person.
That's absolutely great. I mean, in previous times, of course, Reed Meadham have gone to a lot of trouble to try to connect the investors with relevant projects. That, frankly, has all been too hard this time, largely for reasons we all understand. But yes, they will hang around afterwards. They will have their business cards. Part of my job, it really is to make sure that the right people approach the panelists. It's no good approaching Claudia with a low-grade TV idea, because that's just not how Silver Reel works. They are top-end A-listers. So there's a range right across the scale of investment. Yes, they will be around to hand out business cards afterwards.
Well, maybe I'll be able to grab a quick word with them and when we're down in Cannes and shed a bit more light on what they discuss at the panel. Fantastic. So, and is this going to be available to watch digitally, the panel?
Yes, it is. It won't go out live, but I don't think just then it goes out live, but it will be on catch up.
Okay, excellent. And for those that are making the trip down to Cannes, tell us when and where that panel is.
Listen, it's on Wednesday the 13th. It is at 10:30 in the Marguerite Room, Riviera 8. None of us, we always have trouble, don't we, finding the Rivieras, but once you're there, of course, there's that much more air and space in that area, which is obviously why they are organising events there.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
10:30 on the morning of the 13th in Marguerite. So please do join me. This is new and different, this stuff. This is post-COVID finance, and there are very few of us that don't need to know what is going on post-COVID finance with these new models.
Amanda, I'll be there. I'm sure lots of other people will be as well. So thanks again for joining us and giving us a little snapshot of the panel. And I will see you either in Riviera 8 or on the Croisette.
Yep, super, Justin. For a glass of rosé, one would hope.
Yes, I think so. I think we can manage that. Thank you again for joining us, Amanda. Amanda Groom there from the Bridge.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me, Justin.
Well, that's about it for this week's MIPCOM preview show. Thanks for listening. I hope we've whetted your appetite for next week, when we'll be in Cannes talking to TV's movers and shakers for our MIPCOM special show. If you're going to be in Cannes, why not come along to our drinks event at Brown Sugar, behind the Grand Hotel, on Sunday the 10th of October at 5 p.m. Just visit the TellyCast LinkedIn page to put your name down on the list. And don't forget to rate and subscribe to TellyCast and share it with friends and colleagues. And you can also follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter. TellyCast was edited by Ian Chambers and recorded in London. Until next Thursday, we'll see some of you in Cannes. And as always, stay safe.